let's get started. So basically, the intention of this live here today is to share some just basics of microdosing. So some common questions and concerns that people often have with microdosing mushrooms is, around dosage, around how much to take, when to take it, what it should feel like. There's just a lot of these little questions that can be confusing because there's a lot of information out there. And so, first of all, one of the important things to bear in mind is that everyone is unique. We're all a unique individual, we're all a unique person, and to expect that it's going to be the same for everyone is not reality. So a lot of people come to microdosing often from the more Western world of psychiatrics or medication, or this idea that this is the pill you take with this amount and it's going to heal your life. And from my experience, that's just not how reality works. So I want to go into that as well. And I have a list of questions here that some people have asked, and we're going to dive into those. And once again, if you have specific questions, feel free to just drop a comment and engage here and share how you're feeling with the microdosing, if you have any concerns or any successes. So one of the first things to keep in mind when it comes to microdosing is finding your proper dose is really important. So this means, what is your sweet spot? And when I say sweet spot, I mean it's kind of what it sounds like. It's this perfect dose that just feels good in your system, it feels good in your body, in your mind, in your emotions, and in your spirit. And so when you find that sweet spot, it means that you're engaging with the medicine. Usually it means that you're going to be feeling the medicine, and you're going to be able to do whatever you need to do with your day. And so the sweet spot's different for everyone. So what does this mean? I mean, really the way that I describe the sweet spot, that perfect dosage, is that you take your microdose. I always recommend taking it in the morning. So let's say you do that. Let's say you take it in the morning, first thing, and you have your coffee, you go on with your day, and at some point you might notice a little bit of like a spark, or like a oomph, or something arise within you that may feel somewhat unfamiliar. It's like, oh, that's the microdose. Okay. And it might be like, ooh, this feels nice, or like, ooh, I don't know, this feels a bit interesting, and it might take a moment to adjust. Then, you might, at that point, take a few breaths, tune in with the medicine, feel your heart, your body, and then go on with your day. So whatever that might be, maybe you have the day off, or maybe you're going to work, and you just go on with your regular day. And most likely that feeling will either just be very subtle in the background, or you may not even feel it anymore. You might just go, life is busy. You go on with your day and you forget, oh yeah, about that microdose. You just forget about it. And then at some point in your day, it's like, why do I feel so good? Like, you might ask yourself that, like, man, today feels better. I feel like more alert or focused, or there's this like kind of joyful feeling that's unfamiliar. And then suddenly, oh yeah, I took that microdose. That makes sense. And that's like the best way I can describe the experience of what the sweet spot should feel like. And so some people, for example, want to feel the microdose more than others. So their sweet spot might be a slightly more, for lack of a better term, intense experience, even though it's still going to be subtle. So what I mean by that is, like, some people don't really want to feel it at all, which is fine. There is this idea that a microdose is an imperceptual, I'm not sure if I'm saying that word right, basically that a microdose, you wouldn't feel a microdose at all. So some people like to have it that way. I personally think if you're going to take a microdose, you should at least feel something. We should at least be engaging with the medicine, having some sort of embodied experience with it. That's my perspective. Now, if that's not for you, that's fine. And even if you're taking such a small dose that you can feel nothing, the medicine is still working, okay? And this is something that I like to touch on. So people come at this often with the mind. People come at this wanting to understand what to expect, how it works, and all these mental questions that are valid. And I understand we live in a mental society that's very mind-based, very academic. And from my experience when we're working with plant medicine, that is a realm that is beyond the mind. And there's things that happen that are mysterious. There's things that happen that are unexpected. And there's things that happen beyond a physical or mental or even emotional experience. So what do I mean by this? What I mean is that when you choose to engage with this medicine and you come before this medicine and say, I'm struggling in my life and I'm looking for support, I'm looking for guidance, I'm looking for help with X, Y, and Z, I'm depressed or this or that. You're inviting a door to open, and in a way you're opening that door. And when that door opens, you begin a process. And that process begins to happen beyond the microdose. It's a process of healing, it's a process of growth, and it's a process of awakening. And so it's kind of like going down the rabbit hole. Like you begin that journey and it opens this whole world, whether you continue to microdose or not. So the reason I bring that up is because, even if you're taking such a tiny, tiny amount that you can feel nothing, you've still opened that door and invited a powerful helper and spirit into your life. And, magical things often start to happen in people's lives. I'll tell one story about someone I was working with, because I do consultations and coaching as well. And I did a few calls with this woman, and she was going through some difficulties in her life, and she really was a bit confused about some very strong experiences. She had gone through some loss and some grief and some hardship that left her very confused. And she was seeking that clarity, and she was also, going through her grieving. So there was sadness and emotion and depression. And so she came to the microdoses to ask for that clarity, to ask for that support, and to just help her in her life. And so we talked and we went through some things. And funny enough, she lived near to where one of my teachers lives. And it just so happened that within a month, we were doing a ceremony down where my teacher lives, in Michigan. And this is not a psychedelic ceremony, this is just a regular ceremony where we gather around the fire, we do prayers, First Nations or Native elders come and share teachings and share stories, and it's just a place to gather and connect to ourselves, each other, community, and to spirit, the earth. Okay, so really beautiful ceremony. And so I said, hey, you're in Michigan, you're near to my teacher, I'm going to be down there in a month, why don't you come? And she came with her whole family. And before you know it, she's in this totally new environment. She's with 50 people that she's never met before. Maybe not that many, about 24 people she's never met before. And she's having this profound spiritual experience that it's not like she's there microdosing. It's not like she's there eating mushrooms. But this is the door that opened for her. And this crazy, synchronistic, magical thing unfolded in her life. And it's continuing to unfold. This was recently. This was just a month ago. And she's continuing to unfold on this journey. And so when we say, what's the proper dose? Or how much do I take? Well, it's so relative. And what is it that you need? So it's really hard for me to give very cookie cutter answers, because everyone is so different. And that's why I really prefer to work personally with people, because we can go into what you're experiencing, we can go into what you're struggling with, and really find a protocol as well as other methods that are going to support that microdose. Now, that being said, we do have to be practical here. Okay? For those of you wondering, I'm not taking shots of sake here. This is tea, pu'er tea. It's very tasty. And so I have it in this little teapot. Very cute little teapot. And drink it by the shot. Anyhow, just to clarify, in case anyone was curious. So, okay, let's get practical here. So how much do you take? Well, the way I recommend finding your sweet spot, the way I recommend working with the medicine, is just starting in 50 milligram increments. So milligram is 0.05 of a gram, okay, 0.05, very small dose. 1 gram is still a fairly small dose. So just to give you a perspective, like to have a full-on psychedelic journey, you generally need to take about 3 grams to 4 grams, and even beyond that. But that's like, generally, if you're a normal average person, if you take 3 to 4 grams, you're gonna have like, you know, a 4 to 6 hour experience that is generally quite intense and enlightening. So 0.05 of a gram, that's such a small amount compared to what a normal trip would be. So are you gonna trip out? No. You know, this is a very small amount. So then you take that 50 milligrams and just watch throughout that day. Take it, it's such a small amount, you can take it on a normal day. Unless you're like operating heavy machinery or doing surgery or something. You know, you can, just don't wait for that perfect day. Because I get this a lot too. People say, I'm nervous about starting and I've had these microdoses for like half a year and I haven't started yet because I'm just nervous about it. And it's like, if you start so small as 50 milligrams, you're not going to have a very intense experience. And so you can kind of lay those worries to rest and just jump in. Just have the experience. And if at any point you feel like, wow, that was too much, you know, just take a breath and trust the medicine. You're going to be fine. Okay, so then you take that one day. See how it feels. If it's like, wow, I felt I felt nothing, then the next day take 2. Meaning like 2 50 milligram capsules or doses. So now you're at 100 milligrams, 0.1 of a gram, which is generally the dose that works for a lot of people. Okay, so, and then just keep increasing in 50 milligram increments until you reach that sweet spot. So for some people, that's 150 milligrams. For others, it's up sometimes as much as 300 milligrams. So it's so, and it doesn't really seem to vary too much with weight. There's something else going on with how the medicine works in the body. So generally speaking, okay, this is what I say. If you're a super sensitive person to substances in life, you know, nervous, worried, start with 50 milligrams. If you're just like an average person, and you just want to jump in and have the microdose experience, just go with 100 milligrams. If you're kind of like a heavy hitter, you've eaten a lot of mushrooms, or you have a lot of experience, or you're just not, it's just not the, you know, has a pretty strong system, or if you're taking large amounts of cannabis, because that can kind of numb the feeling, and or if you're taking psychiatric medication, like antidepressants, which that's a whole other topic, and technically it's not really my place to speak on it. I don't have a lot of experience. I know that, to say this, I know a lot of people who have done it with that without problems, but I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't do it. Anyhow, so if you're taking those drugs and you choose to microdose, generally you need to take a bit more of a microdose, like upwards to 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams. Okay, so highly sensitive, 50 milligrams. Normal person, 100 milligrams. You know, tough-skinned or, you know, smoking a lot of marijuana or taking medication, 200 milligrams. And then that would be where you might start, and then increase, decrease by 50 milligrams. Play around with it until you get to your sweet spot. And once you find that, stick with it. Stick with it for 3 months, and then reassess. So someone just asked in the comments, by the way, I'm live on TikTok, but this video is primarily for my Facebook group, which you can find that in the link in my bio and all that. Just so you know, that's where the comments are, and that's where I'm focusing on the camera there. So anyhow, someone asked, the person I purchased from relates it in milliliters. Is this the same? No, milliliters is different. Usually, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of product you have. Generally, when I've heard people talk about milliliters, that's because they're selling like a tincture or some sort of liquid extract. So I actually don't have experience with those. The times I've tried those, they just don't. Yeah, they don't really have a good effect. Like they don't work as well. Milligrams is more weight. Milliliters is more liquid. Yeah. So, how often do you dose? So, this is the next question we're going to go into. How often? Oh, it's honey. Okay, this person's saying it's in milliliters and honey. I mean, honestly, that's so hard to judge. How much, like how fine is the powder? How well is it mixed in the honey? I mean, you can definitely microdose, but for a more like exact approach, I would really recommend sourcing some sort of powder or capsules because it's just a lot easier to have consistent dosing. But play around with the honey and just, you can kind of find your way with it, but you might end up taking a little bit more than you might expect, and that could, potentially, depending how adventurous you are, it could be fun or it could be problematic. Okay, so next question, how often do I dose? So what I'm going to add to that, how often do I dose, is for how long as well. Because there's a lot of talk about this. People say, dose for this long or that long, whatever. Dose for every day or every other day, or there's a million protocols. I'm going to just make it really simple for you guys. 5 days on, 2 days off. Super easy to fit into your calendar. The days off are important. The days off allow you to kind of have some time without the microdose where you can experience life and just kind of be in a more like regular headspace and assess how you're feeling. It also prevents you from building a tolerance, which can happen fairly quickly with mushrooms. If you're eating them every day, constantly, you're going to build a tolerance very quickly. I was just talking to a friend last night who, he said, I was microdosing and like really getting into it. And this dude's like pretty hardcore, just dives head first, like hardcore athlete, extreme athlete, and just loves like going 100% into stuff. And he was up to the point where he was eating 1 gram a day, and that felt like a microdose to him, which normally that would be like a lot. So his tolerance built very quickly because he was taking so much so regularly. That's why it's good to take days off. Now, so yeah, someone just said, I dose 1 day on, 3 days off, and I like it. Okay, so this is a good comment. I provide the 5 days on, 2 days off for 2 reasons. One, you get to consistently connect with the medicine and be in communication with the medicine, and you start to incorporate the medicine into your daily life and into daily practices, which is really where the transformation can occur, when we start to really change the way we're living, the way we're viewing things, the way we're relating to the world around us on a daily basis. So I like to recommend that people take it, regularly like that, so they can commune with that medicine. Now, the other reason is a lot of times people just need a clear structure, and instead of saying, oh yeah, just feel into it and do what feels good, sometimes that cannot be very helpful for people. Sometimes they just need you to tell them, do it like this, and that really helps them to just dive into the experience and be present for it. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, take what feels truthful, adapt it to your life. So if what feels better to you is 1 day on, 2 days or 3 days off, great, do that, okay? What I do recommend is that, so how often do I dose? Okay, that's what we just went over. How long do I dose for? I recommend that people dose for like 3 months to really commit to that 3-month period. And so if you're going to be dosing, whatever your weekly protocol is, whether it's your own or the one that I'm recommending, whatever, just commit to that schedule for 3 months. So the reason I recommend this is because when you, okay, a couple of things. So first, when we create a container like that and say, I'm gonna do this intentional thing that's gonna benefit my life for 3 months, we now give spirit, creator, and the magic of this existence a container to work in. And it's like, whether you guys believe this or not, there's all sorts of powerful energy around you, even if you're miserable. And that energy loves you, and that energy wants to help you. And so when you say, I'm committing 3 months to helping myself and asking for help, then those energies are finally like, oh yeah, we can help them, let's go. And then they have a time frame to work with. And then you can really get some solid stuff done in 3 months, okay? Like spirituality, healing, it's not that different from like physical life. If you said, I'm gonna work out for 3 months and I'm gonna do that for 5 days on, 2 days off, or if you said, I'm gonna work on my business for 3 months and I'm gonna do that for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, like after 3 months, you're pretty much guaranteed to start seeing some sort of impactful result. If you're committed, if you're consistent, and you do it. That's just the truth. Like 3 months is a good chunk of time. So if you're taking this medicine and you're doing it, regularly for 3 months, you're gonna see some sort of shift at the end of that time. And if you don't, then, reach out. Maybe there's something that you need some support with, or maybe there's something that you're not seeing, or something that you could incorporate to have more results. And it's possible this medicine's just not for you, because that's a real thing too. Like we get excited about these headlines, microdosing, helping the world, curing anxiety. It's like, it might not be for you, and that's okay. But give it a try, because you're not gonna be better, you're not gonna be worse off because of it. There's very little risks involved, with microdosing. Now, if you take a bigger dose, there are some risks. We can talk about that later. Okay, so that's how I recommend. How often do you dose? 3 months. So then someone's asking, how long do I keep off after 3 months? So this is really relative. I recommend, there's different practices that we can incorporate over this 3 month period. I'll be talking about that more in the future. Basically, after that 3 months, you want to reflect. Take a week, at least a week. And you can keep dosing during that time if you want, or take a week off. And just look at your life. Look at what you wrote down as your intention, your prayer, your focus at the beginning of that 3 months. Because it's good to write it down. Look at where you're at now. Take a few days to really meditate and reflect on how far you've come, or how much farther you feel like you still have to go. And be really honest with yourself. And then from there, assess, okay, by then your connection with yourself is most likely going to be deeper. So tune into your heart. Ask yourself, what's best for me right now? And see what comes. Some people only need to microdose for 3 months, and after that they feel like they got what they needed and they can move on with their life. Some people microdose for years because that's what they need, and both are valid, both are good. And it can be good, especially if you've built a tolerance. So if at the end of 3 months you're taking the same dose and it's really, you're hardly feeling it, then it would probably be beneficial to take 1 to 2 weeks off of your dose, so that you can flush it from your system, detox, the medicine, and just rebuild, or like break down your tolerance. So basically, I want you guys to feel empowered. I want you to feel like you don't need to always be asking others for the answer, and to understand that this journey of microdosing is really about being free of needing the microdose, being free of needing anything external from yourself. Does that make sense? Because everything you need is already inside you. So another question is it safe to take with other supplements? And I'm going to include this with another one saying, if you take it with Kratom, can it affect the person negatively? Okay. Well, as far as I know, there's no contraindications with supplements. Now, there's like literally a billion supplements in the world, and so to say that you can't combine it with any other supplement would be, I can't say that. That being said, I don't know of any. With Kratom, I don't have a ton of experience with Kratom. I haven't heard of people microdosing at the same time. Not that people don't. I just haven't heard of it, so I can't speak directly on it. What I would ask you is, why are you taking Kratom? And why do you think you need the Kratom? So, if you're taking it for pain, physical pain, then, it might be good to keep taking it. Because, microdose can help with pain, but it's probably not going to do what Kratom does. And that pain is going to distract you. Now, if you're taking Kratom for anxiety, and you're taking microdoses for anxiety, and you're taking this for anxiety and that, and you have like this many things you're taking for anxiety, I would say try simplifying your life and look at what is driving you to seek all these things. Like, oh, I need Kratom, I need microdose, I need the desperation, right? And I understand it, I've been there. It can be hard when we're really suffering and we've been taught that all these things are going to fix our lives. I've been there. And I've spent like tens of thousands of dollars on supplements thinking that they're going to fix my life. And they're supportive, but what's really fixed my life is this. The heart and soul of the human being. And going inward and letting go of what those fears are rooted in. That desperation is rooted in. And releasing that and finding that healing inside of yourself. And, these medicines are here to reflect that back to us. They're here to help us to do that within ourselves. And, just to be aware of that. This is why these answers are hard to just give generally. Now, one thing I would say is, this isn't necessarily a supplement, but there's a lot of people microdosing LSD. There's a lot of people microdosing ayahuasca. I would recommend, if you're microdosing plants, to stick with one plant. And ideally, if you're working with a plant medicine, to just stick with that plant medicine. Because when you start to cross all this medicine and start throwing all these things into your being, it can create confusion over time. So, if you're gonna take LSD and you're gonna take mushrooms and once again, why do you think you need all these things? Why are you taking all these things? Like, just simplify it and choose one. It sounds crazy in this world where we think we need everything, but there's a lot of power in just that. One. What more do you need than mushrooms? How many different bottles do you need to be taking? So that's what I would recommend is, like, I would say it's probably not safe to be mixing a bunch of psychedelics. And, in an ideal world, if you're going to microdose, take it without even cannabis, if you can. Once again, why are you taking cannabis? Why are you smoking all the time? Why are you taking the microdose? Look at yourself. Okay, cannabis is for this reason, microdosing is this for this reason. Is there a cohesion here? Is there a nice fluidity? Or are you just looking for ways, like external things to fix your life? Once again, it comes back to that conversation. So just be honest with yourself. Take a look within. And be gentle on yourself too. I say these things to shine light, not to make you feel like bad about yourself, or not for you to feel like, oh man, I'm smoking and I'm microdosing, this is bad, this is about letting go of those beliefs. If you're smoking and taking microdoses, it's, whatever, it's not the end of the world, you'll be fine. And the best time of day, let's just change to the next question. What is the best time of day to microdose? So I like to take it in the morning because the morning is a time of ritual for everyone. You know, whether you're working a 9 to 5 in some office, being in a little cubicle, you know, whatever, or an ant in the workforce marching off to work, the morning is a ritual because it's generally consistent. It's generally a time of like, you know, preparing yourself, whatever, right? Like you make your coffee. That's like the closest thing most people have to a ceremony these days is like their morning coffee, where it's this like sacred time where the water is boiling and the coffee is brewing and you can smell the aroma and it makes you pause for a moment and get so excited about that hit of caffeine. So, you know, I'm being silly, but you know what I mean, right? So the morning is already a time of ritual, so incorporating that can be powerful to set the tone for your day, to set your intention for the day. So some people, it depends on their schedule too, like, you know, really find what works for you. Once again, I had a friend that just reached out to me and she said, hey, you know, I'm a single mom, I'm busy, I haven't been able to create space in my daily life to incorporate this medicine and it feels like too much. And she said, but I've been waking up in the night and taking my microdose and working with it in my dreams. She's super connected to dream work and really connected to that spiritual path and that spiritual way of interpreting dreams. And so, and she said, man, I've been having great dreams and the microdose feels like it's really helpful. Is this okay? And I said, that's awesome. That's a great way to do it. So some people will do that or take it before bed. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Cool way to do it. So one person asks, what are the benefits of taking a macrodose during or prior to microdosing? How many milligrams do you recommend for a macrodose? Okay, so the benefits of taking a macrodose before microdosing, the way I like to talk about it is mushrooms, the essence of mushrooms is that they shine a light in our life. And that light illuminates what we are maybe unable to see. The thing is, once we see something in our life, once we become aware of something in our life, and we accept it as a part of us, even if it's something that we do not desire, even if it's something that's difficult or causing suffering, we accept it, because what else can you do? It's already there. That simple act of becoming aware of and accepting can move a tremendous amount of energy. And when that energy moves and releases and we let it go, then there's more room for us to fill up with ourselves, our true selves. And that is inherently healing. So this is why microdosing can be so powerful, because it shines that light inside of us and helps us become aware and accept those dark, shadowy places within ourselves. Now, I like to use that analogy because that light is the light of God, really. It's the light of consciousness, it's the light of Creator. And it's not an external light from the mushrooms. It's really the mushrooms working in cohesion with our own consciousness, with our own light, and with our own soul. And that's what heals us. That's what will heal you. Until we do that work, these things remain in darkness. These things remain in the shadows. And then out of sight, out of mind, you know, there's truth to that, but on a deeper level, they then are these spirals and cycles that start to govern and control our lives, where we live from that darkness and we're completely unaware of it. And it's kind of crazy, because people will talk like about how they've connected with, love or God, or they found this or they know that, and yet you look at their life and it's full of chaos. And they're a mess. Yet they hold this composure like they're not. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they haven't really gone inward and really taken stock of things. They're still living from their mind and their ego. And these mushrooms, they help us with that. They help us to assess ourselves and be honest with ourselves. And that can be really healing. So I wanted to talk on that part of medicine because it's an important part. That when you take mushrooms, it's about connecting with truth. And truth is a fairly terrifying energy. Generally speaking, when people touch on the energy of truth, they're both drawn and hypnotized by it and terrified of it. They both desire it and fear it. And ultimately, truth is what will liberate us. Truth is what will heal us. Truth is what will free us. And so, when we're talking about healing, what does that mean? Because I've witnessed people heal on their deathbed. I've witnessed people heal when their body is dying. How can you heal if you're dying? How can you heal if your physical body is turning back to the earth and to ash? Because you heal here. You heal in your soul and in your soul's journey, and you let go of things that you've been carrying. And that heals us. That truth heals us. So it's better to do that work now. Most days I'll have experiences where fear will arise inside of me. And I'll be aware of it, and I'll feel it. And as I shine that light of truth, as best as I can as a human, inside of myself, that fear begins to dissolve. And that experience for me of fear dissolving is like dying. Like I can feel part of myself dying. And I can feel all the internal resistance, contractions, all of these things. And I feel my soul get brighter. And my soul becomes stronger and more embodied. And I feel that freedom that comes. And so they say all this spiritual stuff that we're doing is really just preparing us for that moment when we do die. Because you will face the truth at some point. You will face the truth, whether it's now, when you find that courage inside of yourself and you say, I'm going to face it, I'm going to look at my life. I'm going to look at the things that aren't working, I'm going to be honest with myself. Look at that truth now and do something about it, because you're still, if you're on TikTok or you're on Facebook or you're on your phone, you can do that, so you can do something about the other things in your life. Or you can just keep brushing it under the rug, waiting for that better time, until suddenly, that lie manifests as cancer. Or that lie manifests as sickness, or as a heart attack, and it's too late. Or you just get to that point where you're too old to change. I mean, that's BS, but you know what I mean. And then you're on that journey now, going down that tunnel, and there's no turning back then. And you're facing that truth. You're forced to, and you have to look at your whole life then. That's intense. That's why when people have near-death experiences, they're blasted with that truth, and when they come back, they're changed, and they're different. When you can live each moment in your day like you're going to die, and you know that you could die, and it's not just like, because I'm telling you this and obviously anything can happen, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, Captain Obvious, like anything can happen, you can always die. It's like, no, when you actually know in your heart and you've touched on death and you've witnessed death and you've experienced it within yourself on a tangible level, each day is a joy, because you may not have this tomorrow, or you may not have the health that you have now tomorrow, or the freedom. So love it, live it, have joy in it. And that's what I found to be so powerful. And that's what this medicine helps us with, okay? That's what this medicine can really support us with, is facing that truth, looking at ourselves, being honest with ourselves. And that's what really heals. So this was a really long, as I've been calling them, sacred ramble. Because I kind of get on these tangents, so thanks for staying with me. Okay, so the sacred ramble brings us back to a question. And that question was, why, what was it? It was, why is it best to have a macro session before starting a microdose? And the reason for that is because a macrodose, when done with earnestness, when done with love, when done with reverence for the medicine and trust, and ideally with some guidance from someone else, it turns on the floodlights, okay? The floodlights of truth. Once again, this medicine is about truth. It shows us the truth. And that's why people will have completely life-changing experiences on mushrooms. Not always, but sometimes. And why some people will take a dose and have a bad trip and maybe not feel the same after that for like a while, or a long time. Well, that's because that truth was too much for them, and it made them go a bit crazy, you know, or they didn't come with respect and love for the medicine, and so they got their butt whooped a bit by truth because they came with a strong ego, like they want to just take it and do what they want with it. That medicine's a trickster, you gotta be careful. So it turns that floodlight on, and that can be, you know, that makes you feel naked. And it can also be, okay, so you take it, you see the truth, you know the truth, you know, you feel like you know it, you go back to life, you're like, wow, I touched God, I know God, God is real, I love God, He's inside of me, I am God, all this stuff, right? Okay, and then we go back to our life, and we think we know all this stuff, but you go back and you just keep living the exact same life that you were living before. And maybe you feel good for a month, and then suddenly that depression or that anxiety creeps its way in, and oh, I think it's time for another macrodose. And do it again, you know, again. I mean, you could do that, but I feel like I value a different kind of work, and I encourage a different kind of work, which is integration, which is, okay, I just saw God, that macrodose, or I just saw this crazy, intense energy inside of me that's been hiding, this fear, you know, or this trauma, or this pain. Or I saw the truth of God, and I know in my heart that I'm God. You know, that my soul is a piece of God, and that lives within me, and that's who I am. You know, this is the things that people will experience. Okay, well now, what are you going to do with that? And that's the integration. That's what you do every single day after that. And that's where the microdosing is really awesome. Because, okay, you have this like super potent experience. Now you microdose after, and it helps with that integration. It helps you incorporate that into your daily life. It's really healing. You start to make those day-to-day changes within your being that are very powerful and impactful. And that's what really counts. That's what's going to heal you. That's what's going to change your life. Because what made you sick and what made you need medicine, you know, and I say sick relatively because ultimately you're not sick. Even if you're dying, even if you're depressed, you know, and you can't roll out of bed in the morning, you're not sick. It's just a way to talk about it. You've just lost sight of who you are, and you've just faltered from your truest self. And when you come back to that, it'll heal, okay? So, you know, but what made you that, what brought you to that place where you need medicine is because, not because something happened to you, it's because of the way that you've been living your life. And often the reason we might live our life in a way that makes us dizzy or confused or unwell is because something happens and it creates a pattern and a negative ripple inside of our being, and we just keep living that out. Okay? So that's important to be aware of. When we change the way we live, then we can heal, because we start to change from how we lived to how we are now, in our truest self. Okay. So that's why microdosing after the macrodose is so helpful, and why it can be helpful to macrodose, with time. Maybe you microdose for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and you've kind of turned that soil inside of yourself. Okay? Brought some stuff to the surface. All right, now maybe you're really ready for that macrodose. And if you choose to do that route, then find someone. Find someone that can guide you in the experience. Either literally in person, who's competent. And be careful, because there's a lot of weird people out there, okay? There's a lot of I just need to plug my phone in here. And I have, that was kind of like an epically interesting moment, because light. Technical difficulties, excuse me. Anyways, I just touched the lamp and it was kind of funny. Anyways, the lamp got bright. So there are some sketchy people out there that have not done their inner work, that have, a lot of unintegrated shadow and fears, and are maybe serving medicine for what I would consider the wrong reason. Now, wrong being relative. So just be mindful. And also trust the medicine, because that's what's in control, ultimately, and God is in control. So if you're called to the medicine, then follow that calling. So ideally someone in person, or just at least someone that can help you. That's something that I work with people on, is I help them prepare for the microdose, or the macrodose, and I help them integrate it and understand the visions and experiences that they had, so that they can bring that into their daily life. So, in terms of dosage, I recommend people start with 2 grams, because 2 grams is enough to have a macrodose experience, but it's also fairly gentle. Right? You don't want to overwhelm yourself. So start, if 2 grams feels enough, great. If not, in a week or a few days, do another dose. Try it a bit more. Generally, 3.5 grams is like the standard dose for someone. Meaning, if you take 3.5 grams of mushrooms, unless you're one of the unique people, which is quite unusual, who has just a naturally high tolerance for this medicine, 3.5 grams is going to be a strong experience, and it's going to be an experience of a journey and a surrender. So everyone has their own perspectives on these things. I guess I'm more conservative, because I want to make sure people are taken care of. I don't want to see people hurt themselves. This is medicine, it's for healing. It's also, it is what it is. If you need to get blasted off, then I guess that's what you need. And let's see. So one person asked, what form is best? Theirs is mixed with honey. So I recommend powder, because it's just a lot easier to weigh out. So milligrams and capsules. The best way is just to literally get some, grind it up, mix it with whatever superfoods you want, and then make your own capsules and just kind of weigh it out beforehand per capsule, however much your capsule can carry, and then you know exactly how much you're taking each day. Or just, there are places, depending where you live and what you have access to, there are places that you can buy it, either locally or online or whatever. if that's the case, that's the best, because you can trust that that medicine is going to be the same in each and every capsule, so it can be a consistent experience, and you don't have to think, oh, did I take too much, or oh, did I need to take more. It's like you know exactly how much you took each time. And that's just how I like to do it. Another question, does this help with brain inflammation from trauma? I don't know if it directly helps with inflammation. I mean, it's not like an anti-inflammatory, but it can definitely help in other ways, which is helping to regrow and heal the damage. So this has actually been proven scientifically, that this can heal, harmed brains. So traumatic brain injuries can really mess with people. Like, people don't realize this, but sometimes you can have a traumatic brain injury when you're a kid, like literally 3 years old. You might not even remember it. And it can actually cause a trajectory of harm to the brain and the nervous system that can affect you for your whole life until you realize the need to heal it. So mushrooms can help with that. Microdosing can help with that, especially over a long term of like 3 months, 6 months, maybe longer. So also depression, anxiety. Like literally traumatic brain injuries can cause depression and anxiety. It's crazy. And it's usually not like you get a TBI, traumatic brain injury, and then you're depressed right afterwards. Sometimes it's like it happens, you kind of go through the process of healing it or whatever you gotta do, and then go back to life, and then 6 months later, that glow in life is a little bit dulled or not there anymore, and you start to feel depressed over a longer period. It's this tricksy thing, it's tricksy, you don't realize it till down the road, and sometimes it's hard to track what caused it. So the other thing is when you do take, medications, like a lot of pharmaceutical medications for depression and anxiety, or if you've suffered from depression and anxiety for a long period of time, or you have gut problems, this can cause issues and inflammation in the brain, and so there needs to be a healing process, and this can help with the healing on that physical level. Trauma, obviously, too. That was the question, actually. Does this help with brain inflammation from trauma? I mean, like emotional trauma and whatnot, definitely. And more importantly, it helps get to the root of it. So the other thing to keep in mind is, like, if you're looking at reducing brain inflammation, there are other things. Like, one of the best things you can do is cut out simple carbs, and also, cut out inflammatory foods. Anything that's going to cause gut inflammation is going to cause brain inflammation. They're connected, and it happens quite quickly. If you have leaky gut, usually you have leaky brain, which means literally like things get into your brain. And this is not to create fear, because sometimes we hear these things and we get afraid, and then we get paranoid, and then it creates this loop of suffering. And that's not, this information is to empower you to realize, wow, if I simply change the way I'm eating, I might actually, heal on a deeper level in my mind and my brain and my spirit. Awesome. I have a lot of potential inside of me to heal myself. Fish oil, super good. It's like the right kind of fish oil, high quality fish oil, great for the brain inflammation. Okay, so the next question and the last question I'm going to cover before we tune out for the day is dosage variation for obese people from all the psych meds. Now, someone asked this in the Facebook group, and I wanted to speak kind of directly on this for a moment. So, directly on this to this person that asked this question. So, first of all, I don't really know a lot about obesity from medication. However, I just want you to know that it's okay what you're going through, and I know it's hard and challenging, and you're cared for in this experience, and there's love around you and with you. And just to realize that this is a blip in time, and it's going to get better. And sometimes we judge ourselves, sometimes we judge what's happening in our lives as bad and negative. And that's normal as humans. And as humans, it's not part of our nature to judge. It contradicts our true nature. And our true nature is to be in a space of acceptance and forgiveness, which are the same. So to understand that this is happening in your life, and it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And to understand too that when you can find a place of acceptance for what's happening, and acceptance of what your body is, and forgiving yourself for the ways that you've maybe, caused harm in your own life, or, not caused harm, but made certain choices that have led you here, that those choices were perfect, and that they are what they need to be. And I know that's kind of like, sometimes, that's a bunch of spiritual BS, and bypassing, and all this and that, and if that's how you want to take it, and choose that road of judgment, then so be it, okay? Or to look at it as a way, that perspective, mindset, is a way to empower yourself. It's a way to accept yourself, to forgive yourself, and to let go. Let go of that which you're carrying, that's expressing itself as weight. To let go of what you're carrying that's expressing itself as a need for psych meds, that is expressing itself as depression, anxiety, whatever it is you're going through. Because ultimately, those things are usually related to our emotions, and the things that we haven't been able to feel, the shame or guilt that we might be carrying. And the best remedy for that is acceptance and forgiveness. So that's your dosage for the dosage variation for obese people. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, once again, if you look at the beginning of this video, I talked about the sweet spot, and the same applies. So just find your sweet spot, and keep going forward with that. So anyways, this is the video for today. Thank you everyone who's joined this live, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be here with you all. And once again, if you have any questions or feedback, please let me know. Would love to hear from you, and have a blessed rest of your